Michelle. Please, please move over to take your seats so we can start. Looking at, and an artist in her own right from Ukraine, and Natalia, who is an activist from Ukraine, and who will tell you a little bit more about herself as well as we carry on. So let me start by saying why we, as the Desmond and Leah Tutu Legacy Foundation, decided to partner with the Ukraine Association of South Africa. We were visited by two women. Um, it was an easy conversation and an easy decision to decide to assist and to get the word out. So we've got a few events that are planned. Started in Johannesburg with a webinar. Grasa Machel was part of that webinar, as well as Natalia and a few others. So a conversation between Africans and Ukrainians about what can be done, about having solidarity for the people. And it's really the human beings on the ground that we are concerned about and the impact on people. So really happy to be having this conversation, and hopefully we as South Africans especially will start to relate, and find ways to assist, to get peace and justice for the war. So thank you again for coming. We will just start with a conversation, and a few performances later. And I will start with Alicia, as the curator of this exhibition. If you can just tell us a bit about where this started and what you hope to achieve by bringing it to South Africa. It is on, it's fine.
So thank you very much, and I'm really I'm real I'm really very thankful for Desmond and Leah to the foundation to invite us, and for our brilliant Ukrainian organization of South Africa, and with a great pleasure I want to invite you to our exhibition, which called the Womanly Face of War. And this is the exhibition of posters created by 4 Ukrainian female artists. All our artists live and work in Ukraine and create their posters since the first day of full-scale scale invasion Russia of Ukraine. And the main idea of our exhibition is to show the real emotion, to show faces, hear the voices, and tell the stories of Ukrainian women who now live and try to survive and win in this terrible war. You can see the barrier, the savior, the mothers to be, the victim, even the witch. From the beginning.
Yes!
Oh, thank you. So yes, you can see a lot of women's faces in this exhibition because, of course, every woman in Ukraine tell you that there are the womanly face of war, and we cannot think about war only like about in a man perspective. There is war cannot be no longer only man's work and only man's like trouble, because of course the women are the very
fragile and very, very vulnerable during so bad and so unsafe situation like this terrible war. But they are not only, the women are not only the victim in this war. You will see the posters about our brave Ukrainian women who defend Ukraine, because we have more than 50,000 Ukrainian women in the Ukrainian army. So this is like the big percent, the 30% of Ukrainian army are Ukrainian women. And most of them were not a soldier before the 24th of February. So, of course, we want to speak about the mothers to be, the moment when every woman feel like very special, want to be the most safe in the most comfortable situation, but there are not so much safety now in Ukraine. So I hope you will enjoy the exhibition, and I hope, and I'm a strong believer that art language is the international language, and the women empathy is the international empathy all over the world, so that every woman can feel the and understand all these faces and roles of Ukrainian women, which we are talking about today. Thank you very much and enjoy.
Thanks,
Not
Alicia.
enjoy, but you know.
Thanks, Alicia, for that perspective. I think the fact that 50,000 women have taken up arms is quite significant. Just one thing I wanted to mention is that the exhibition will be here at the foundation for at least a week. If we can extend it, we will. And it will be accessible to the public for free. So please, if you want to spread the word to make sure that other people come and see and hear the story of the women and how they tell it from their perspective, that would be great. One thing I didn't mention is each of the posters has a QR code that you can actually get more information about the story behind it.
In the left corner, you can scan it and
Read more about the posters.
Thank you. Natalia, the impact of this war on the people, can you talk a bit more about that, please?
Thank you, Bhumi. And thank you to everyone who made it to come and see the womanly face of war. And I'm extremely grateful to the Association of Ukrainians in South Africa, Zvinka and Katya and all the team for making it possible, and for your openness for us to come and to have this heart-to-heart conversation about the impact this war has on the Ukrainian women and children. I think when you travel from as far as Ukraine in Europe, you on one hand feel that we are very, very far away. But at the same time, I think in the last week that I've spent coming to Johannesburg and visiting Sophia Town and Soweto and Trevor Huddleston Center that hosted kindly our opening exhibition, and most of all, seeing the beauty of this extraordinary country, but most of all coming to Cape Town and also just reflecting on all of the meetings we've had in this last week and seeing the people here and having these conversations is priceless. And I think it speaks to how close we are and what we share. Tonight I will leave South Africa, and I'm already thinking that tomorrow I will see my family, and I'll have a chance to hug my children, and we'll probably have a calm weekend when I get back home. But at the same time, I also think of all of the mothers and children in Ukraine who are undergoing this very brutal war, and who in the last 6 months have not had a chance to hug or kiss their husbands, or to safely spend practically any day in the last 6 months. And I think all throughout our conversations here, we were looking with Alessa as the co-founders of this Sunseen Art collective, of the similarities of these experiences of South African women in their struggle against the apartheid for the same liberties, the freedom and the dignity that Ukrainian women are undertaking. I think this was the struggle when that the normal dreams that you have undertaken to have lives full of ability to to grow, to dream, to fulfill your lives. And thanks to this visit, we've found out a little bit more about it, and we salute and are extremely inspired by the bravery and the courage of the women in South Africa who marched to the Union buildings in Pretoria, and who had the bravery in so many creative ways to protest against the oppression. And as you commemorate, Women's Month, to us, August is also very important. On 24th of August, we're going to be, would be celebrating, but now also rethinking our 31 year of Ukraine regaining the independence, and how joyous life has been up until very recently. And unfortunately, this coming back of the Russian or recreation of the Soviet Empire is now haunting us and disrupting the lives of so many Ukrainians. I think it's a war that really scars every Ukrainian. Alessa had mentioned how many women have joined the armed forces. And I think when women join the armed forces, this is precisely not to have to hear the sound with which this dance started in the beginning. I think women will give anything and everything, and their lives will be sacrificed so that there could be safety of not having to listen to the sound to which so many in Ukraine are now subjected to. And I think we in Ukraine now stand for the dignity and freedom of being Ukrainian, for practicing our language, our tradition, for being able to pass on the centuries-long traditions to our kids, of defending our very identity of being Ukrainian. Right now, I'm wearing Ukrainian embroidered shirt, and it's a centuries-long art, which I would not be able to wear if Russia achieves its goals in Ukraine, because the State Information Agency in Russia has clearly outlined what they're going to do to people like myself or Alessa if they were to win this war. I'm also wearing the earrings made of like little plaster, and they're made by daughter of my colleague, my co-worker. Her mom, my colleague, had to flee to live in Poland right now, and I would not be able to wear them if Russia were to succeed, because there is Ukraine on one of the earring, and there is a sign of trident, which means freedom, and into the Ukrainian national sign on the other. So I think, we are defending freedom the same that just the women of South Africa who contributed to bringing down this unjust regime. And to us, freedom is probably more important than our lives. And I think in years that you've struggled, you also see these archetypes of the women that we brought through this exhibition, being the mothers and mothers-to-be, and sometimes victims, and in very many roles, saviors. The same way Ukrainian women are experiencing it right now. I'm a mom of, three kids. I'm a sister. I'm a daughter. I have to be engaged in this war just like millions of my sisters, other women in Ukraine, even though this is not the war that I've chosen or that any of us has wished for. On 24th of February, I woke up in the beautiful city of Kyiv, the ancient city of Kyiv, to the sounds of explosions, and I had about 30 minutes to gather my things. And on that day, I was not sure that I would be able to reach my sons in the safety of the other country. I had to undertake ever since, so many other roles, because other people have entrusted their children to me because they were not able to care for them, my friends or my brother in case of my nieces. I think my heart has been broken so many times, as so many others in Ukraine, because we worry about our elderly. Not only women and children, suffer so much in this war. So, for example, my dad, he's in Lviv, in Western Ukraine. He's 85. He has heard these horrible sounds of air sirens and remembers them from Second World War. and he does not want to leave Ukraine. I cannot convince him to go anywhere. It's his homeland, and he will stay there. But my heart goes out to him every single day when on application I can hear the air sirens. And I think every woman's, Ukrainian woman's, heart breaks every time when we hear the news of yet another Ukrainian soldier dying, and moms in Ukraine having to see their very, young children go, but they sacrifice their lives for something more important, something that will bring a lasting peace to us. And I think many stories that you will see, by checking out the works of the womanly face of war, there are so many of these stories of perseverance, and they go through generations. And it's really sad on the instance, because we feel that Ukrainian struggle and suffering from first the Russian Empire, then the Soviet totalitarian regime, and now again from Russia, it trespasses generations. I'm the third generation of Ukrainians who has suffered at the hands of the Russians, and I have to start all over again, or have to defend our rights and dignity. But it takes also generations right now. So we have a story of a 10-year-old Valeria, who is a champion in checkers, and she now plays checkers and then fundraises to help the Ukrainian army. Or we have stories, of course, of so many women who took up arms to defend. Or we have a story of doctors who in those bombed out maternity wards, or even in bomb shelters, have to help other moms to become mothers. And there are stories of older Ukrainians who are taking care of their pets, trying to bring them to safety under the most difficult of circumstances. We feel that there is always more solidarity among the women. Women can never stay neutral. Women see the pain and the injustice, and they act on it. And our way of acting is to bring those stories to you, to learn more about your stories. We feel that vulnerability of every woman is everyone's vulnerability, and the power of every woman is everyone's power. And we sincerely hope that by having these very sincere talks, hearing much more about the similarities of your struggle against the anti-colonial, oppression, and our struggle right now, that we hopefully, on the level of dialogue of the civil society, can also influence the decision makers who yet have to stop being neutral and have to take the side of the good. And we sincerely hope that that will happen. And we're happy to address any questions you may have, to fill in all of the gaps of maybe knowledge or understanding. We've learned we continue to learn. You've been extreme inspiration to millions and billions of people all over the world, and we sincerely hope that with your support and solidarity on the human level, that we will persevere.
Thank you, Natalia. Okay. Thank you, Natalia. And I think the key word there is solidarity. And we really appreciate you sharing the story. It's different to watching things in the news, to actually have somebody who is experiencing this tell you what it is like. Dr. Rampele, why should we care about this as South Africans?
First of all, let me just, is this working?
Yes.
Yeah. Let me just thank my sisters for coming all the way to remind us of our humanity, which is interconnected, interdependent. I cannot be human if I don't care about what's happening in Ukraine. And so we are grateful that despite our government embarrassing us with their total, unforgivable way of dealing with the pain of injustice, they indicate just how quickly they've forgotten that we would not be free today had the world, the progressive world, not stood in solidarity with us. So thank you for not giving up on us and continuing to engage with us and we can only commit that those of us who remember where we come from will always stand with you. Today we meet to celebrate Women's Month and to express this solidarity with you. It's really poignant, this title, The Womanly Face of War. Because although we are free here as South Africans, we are free politically, we are not free in a socio-economic way. We are not free as people who have dignity and who share the values that are the foundations of this continent, Ubuntu. We meet at this historic building, very symbolic historic building, because this old granary was built on the blood and sweat of slaves and serfs. It was a granary for the conquerors who had dispossessed these people who had to grow and pack the granary and fall into the sea, and many of them perished. But it's appropriate that the city saw it fit to make this granary, this historic granary building, available to celebrate and to promote the legacy of none other than the Arch and his beautiful wife, Leah. Because that's a man who understood, not in a philosophical way only, but in a lived reality way, that we are because other people are. It would not have been otherwise that the Desmond and Leah Tutu Foundation were the first institution to issue a statement against this abominable war. There are no victims in wars, only pain, brokenness, and sorrow. He would not have expected us not to stand in solidarity with you, because he was very clear that in the case of social injustice, those who stand and profess to be neutral, they're actually on the side of the oppressor. And in his usual jocular way, he'll say, "Hey man, imagine a whole elephant with its foot on the tail of a mouse. Hey, you think the mouse is going to appreciate your neutrality? Really? Just think about it. It's so commonsensical that you cannot stand on the side when a bully is traumatizing, killing, and abusing a vulnerable person. And so I want to apologize on behalf of my government, because it's my government, whether I like it or not. They do not, as the Archbishop again said, when they refused to allow the Dalai Lama to come into the country, they do not represent me in their neutrality. We are a people who fought for our freedom so that justice can be served, and justice is not divisible. But I also am proud to be a woman here with you, celebrating women in this Women's Month, but also celebrating the women of Ukraine who are not only fighting this unjust war, but they're having to pick up the pieces. And some of those pieces are within themselves, because women carry the seed. it is not for nothing that in my language, Sepedi, we say, "Mmage ngwana o tshwara thipa ka bogaleng." The mother of the child, if there is a sword, she'll put her hand there to protect her child. So I'm grateful, and please say so to the women of Ukraine that we honor them for their bravery, because we women are not only the carriers and the keepers of the seed, but we are the carers. We carry that spirit of wanting to heal where there are wounds and to feed where there is hunger. Our own country is still wrestling with a lot of pain, unhealed pain, including the pain of places like this, because the descendants of the people, the Khois and the Sons who built these buildings, who built the city, were thrown out of District 6 onto the sands of Cape Town. They are called the Cape Flats. There's nothing Cape about them, nor flat about them. They are places of pain. And the unhealed wounds are still flowing with blood and all of the unspeakable pain that people suffer. But it's not only the people of the Cape Sands who are suffering, also the women of this country. There is a war in this country against women. We've never seen so much gender-based violence. A lot of studies have shown that more women suffer gender-based violence in this country than countries at war. Is that surprising? No. When you have a government that says they are neutral when people are being killed, do you think they can really stop gender-based violence? Forget it. We, the people of South Africa, have to again fight for the healing of this land. And I thank you for coming to remind us that the work of Ubuntu is not yet over. And together, we will overcome. Darkness always flees at the sight of light. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rampele. I think you hit the nail on the head when you said thank you for reminding us of our humanity, because that was exactly the, when we met with Svenka that day, I can't even remember what month it was now, that was exactly the feeling, is we are human beings and human beings are suffering. And that's all it should be about, nothing else. It doesn't matter where in the world it is. So thank you very much. Olesia, art and the artists behind this, what is the key message that they really wanted us to know about them?
Yes. You know, we have here the 4 female artists, and in our project Sunseen Art we have much more artists, even as a male, who draw and paint and reflected by art since the first days of this invasion. And I speak with everybody about art and about inspiration and about the power. So is it difficult, or is it very simple to put reflection in so big war, in so tragic situation? So And there are different emotions and there are different actions, of course, of them, because somebody like changes the style completely. We have here Svetlana Grip, our artist. She was a fashion illustrator before the invasion. So now she draw a very powerful women stories with this embroidery, with this cutting the hair, because this is like I think the powerful metaphor of the woman who preparing to be a soldier, yes, the cutting the hair, because in Ukraine, and I think in a lot of countries, the hair is like the symbol of femininity, of safety, of the family, of being the beauty, a beautiful woman. And yes, the cutting is, it's mean like that you decided to start a new life, and the hard life. So for example, as for me, I have a lot of ideas in those days because I read a lot of stories every day in a Facebook, in a social media, and I hear a lot of stories every day from my friends. And I can cry, like several times per day, and laugh several times per day, because in a social media I had have a women who lost their husband. I have a women, my friends, who become refugees in a different countries with the children. Yes, and this is very hard to tell the children that they have to leave the house, leave all their favorite choice, and go somewhere. So every day somebody die, and like yesterday, we have a missile strike in Kharkov, and people died there, and it was one children dying even yesterday. Every day, several times per day, we have a air alarm, and it means that it will be missile strike somewhere in this region. So if it's not in a Kiev, because I live in Kiev, so it will be somewhere, And I read one article of our good philosopher, and he told that we are very united now, and it's true. A lot of people, all people in Ukraine are really very united now. And even death unite us, because we understand that somebody die for you, so because you're alive. And that's why for me the art is like the most safety and the most powerful way to put my emotion in. And I don't know about everybody, but I know that like all artists in Ukraine I know change the topics and draw only reflection about war, because we have no more topics in Ukraine who can be which can be more powerful or more interesting for the deep thinking people, I cannot imagine. I know the stories that there were some artists during the Second World War who drawing like the still lives, because it was like like some meditation for them. But I don't know this kind of artist in Ukraine. Everybody I know work hard, and we all are very thankful for our army force. Every day when I put my work, the new one, in a social media, and my colleagues, when we put our works in a social media or present it in an exhibition, we told that we are thankful for our army, that we can draw, and we can do what we adore to do. And it's very good when we can a little bit help for our country with our works. So I hope you will feel this emotion in the exhibition. For example, Anastasia Postovarova, she had a very, very sad and painful posters about the pain and line and the night before the battle. But the last poster is her also, this rainbow, calling the hope. And for me, it's very important posters. And I want to finish this exhibition like this one, because this was the first rainbow she saw when she come back to Ukraine after she was in evacuation for a month in the beginning of the invasion. So I hope you will feel the same hope of the peace and justice we really want in when we win, and we will definitely win because we have no choice.
I think at this point I'd like to invite another artist, Sipogazi, who is a South African poet, to share her feelings about the world.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for this conversation. Just quickly, my connection to Ukraine is through fellow poets, a friend of mine, Oksana, who lives in Pretoria, as well as some poets through the Lviv Book Fair last year. Actually, I was taking part online. And we're having conversations about the connections between Ukraine and South Africa, and I don't think we could have imagined this would be a different conversation this year. And I actually just thank you so much also for the invitation, because, you know, as a writer, it's quite, with relative ease, you use this imagery or this metaphor of war. And I think it means something so different, and it's taken on weight. But also you realize that there's this kind of fatigue that we sometimes feel with online information being bombarded by news and so on, and I'm really just sitting here realizing that for people who live with it, there's just no option to get tired or to have some kind of fatigue. And so I really appreciate the opportunity for this to be a reminder, and I hope that through social media, through whatever connections or contacts or communication that we have with other people, we'll keep this conversation going. I'm going to share a poem that was written many years ago. I wrote it, didn't write itself. Many years ago, my English teacher like, don't use the passive voice. Which I wrote many years ago, speaking to the prevalence of violence, gender-based violence in South Africa. The poem has since become a stage production and a short film, and it just keeps, again, it's about keeping the conversation going. And I hope it speaks to our solidarity and our connection. Thanks for the hashtag, but there's no time to tweet. Between taxi rank, construction site, and street. Only enough time to clutch your bag to your body to yourself, and yourself to this thought, please don't talk to me. Please don't talk to me. Please don't talk to me. Thanks for the hashtag, but there's no time to tweet in the boardroom or by the photocopying machine, where power pinches the purse strings and makes you a puppet. And everyone knows that the puppet master's hands like to slip below the neck, below the waist, below the hem, but the show must go on, so the audience claps and claps and claps its way to a 13th check. Thanks for the hashtag. But there's no time to tweet in vestry and confession booth, where scriptures are interpreted behind smoke screens between a collar and a robe, and the pulpit is now a bookshelf of bodies because God was cast out a long time ago to make space. Thanks for the hashtag, but there's no time to tweet, even in parliament and court, where they're in the business of cooking laws. But first, a few questions to establish your innocence. Did you say no? Do your clothes say no? Your life, your values, your virtues, how long have you lived as a no? Because what matters is not what you say, it's what he believes he heard. Thanks for the hashtag, but there's no time to tweet. Data is expensive here. There's no network here. How do you explain Twitter or a hashtag for that matter when my grandmother, my aunt, and my cousin don't speak English here? So thanks for the hashtag, but the principle will fail you here. The police ask what I did to deserve it here. The docket is for sale here. They get parole here. The lecturer will fail you here. The principal is like a king here. The prophet is father here. The neighbors mind their own business here. The family wants to pay damages to make things right here. They say, I'll ruin the family name here. They say, bekezela here. They say they want to fix me here. They say, don't try, be clever here. And they say, smile here. But the trend is hashtag, we are dying here. Thank you.
Thank you, Sipogazi. What an emotional evening. I would like to open it to anybody here who would like to ask some questions of any one of our panelists. Are there any questions? Are you all just dumbfounded by the gravity of the situation? Natalia, you look like you'd like to say something.
I just want to really thank for this poem. It speaks volumes to us, because I think we all feel with this feeling right now in Ukraine. It could have been me, like it could have been me. It could have been my daughter. It could have been someone I really know and cherish and love. And I think we did not realize that just before the beginning of the war, before 24th of February, there were 265,000 women in Ukraine who were expecting, and over 80,000 of them would deliver in the first 3 months. So we have 63,000 little kids, children who had to be born in either bomb shelters or without proper care in some of the hospitals and maternity wards that, would be bombed or shelled. And then they would, of course, have to be taken to safety. And that's so contrasts on one hand, and then on the other speaks with the experience of when Ukrainian army started liberating the villages and the cities around Kyiv and other areas, and we started hearing these stories of brutality, of this unnecessary brutality, unnecessary cruelness, whereas women would be, raped multiple times, and the words would be so that you would not bear Ukrainian children anymore. And I think those war crimes that Ukraine is now investigating and documenting, and my colleague who spoke at the first Just Peace talks, that we are so grateful to Leah and Desmond Tutu Foundation that you were the pioneer to raise this topic, to take this leadership stance in South Africa and to engage in that dialogue. So Alexandra Matvichuk, she is a human rights activist and a lawyer and head of the Center of Civil Liberties, and she said, we've already documented 13,000 cases of war crimes. Ukraine now has more war crimes committed by the Russian soldiers than we have investigators to investigate. So we're calling on other countries, please send us the people so we can document it all properly, so that justice really can be served. Because we've unfortunately made the mistake before of having previous crimes against us gone without, with impunity. And I'm really humbled that we're sitting and on the backdrop, there are hands of the Archbishop Tutu. I think we're so privileged as Ukrainians to also have, a host of leaders like him who were showing the light to others in the ultimate darkness. And it's so important to ensure that evil is stopped and punished, because then it gets perpetuated. And we see that in the actions of the Russian army and in seeing the echoes of those repressions against us that are happening in the 21st century that did not finish us in the 20th century when we lost 4 million people in the man-made famine by Stalin and by Soviet totalitarian regime, and by losing 6 million people in the World War II, when the armies between Nazi regime and the Soviet totalitarian regime were passing through Ukraine back and forth, and then all of our dissidents who fought for the Ukrainian identity, for being able for us to be who we are in the gulags, in the concentration camps, essentially. And we feel that that has to finally stop. So when Alessa says we will not stop, we will not surrender, it's because we want that just peace and sustainable peace to arrive. We want to ensure that there is this lasting chance for women to bear children in safety, for young women to have their dreams and be able to fulfill them in their lives, to do what they want, to really do what they want, because then we believe there is future for the world. And we were just discussing before this exhibition, there are so many other larger global problems in the 21st century that we are becoming aware of. There is the vast, economic inequality that essentially does make, people unfree in our country and here and everywhere else. There is climate change. There are big issues that we could be collaborating on together. And we hope that as soon as we defend Ukraine and that war is over, we will be able to focus on that, really. Thank you so much.
Okay, last call for questions. Okay. Dr. Rampele, can I ask you to say some final words?
Well, I just am grateful that you have
Your
come
mic.
to. Sorry. I'm grateful that you have come to reawaken our humanity, so we can again feel what it means to be human and rise up and take responsibility for contributing to a world where the ancient wisdom of Africa that enabled humanity to evolve on this continent, that enabled science, technology, philosophy, cosmology to evolve here. That wisdom is our heritage, which we are trampling underfoot by not rising up to the responsibility of calling what is unjust in our own midst, what is unjust on the continent, and what is unjust in the rest of the world. The Ukrainian war is a wake-up call, as is the war in Ethiopia, the war in the South Sudan. They're all indicators of our failure as humanity to understand that we are inextricably linked. We are one human family. And anybody who abuses, attacks, undermines another person is undermining themselves and this human family. And I'm grateful that you have honored us here in this space where this man taught us so much, and we are struggling to gather up his footprints, his wisdom, so it can guide us. So thank you, and know that we are with you in spirit. And for South Africans, I really think we need to get our act together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So just one final thing that I forgot. We have a video with more voices from more women from Ukraine that we can listen to. So if you can cue the video, please, first.
This war is so terrible that I want to metaphorically heal all the destruction with my works.
Напад Росії на Україну 24 лютого перерізав моє життя, як і життя кожного українця на дві частини.
Ми виконані в мінімалістичному стилі.
This war is so terrible that I want to metaphorically heal all the destruction with my works.
Напад Росії на Україну 24 лютого перерізав моє життя, як і життя кожного українця на дві частини.
Ми виконані в мінімалістичному стилі. Дуже проста ідея, якийсь предмет чи символ російської культури чи традиції, і за ним прочитується символ російської агресії, бомба чи ракета чи...
During our exhibition, we can have a closer look at the Ukrainian women, hear their stories and their voices. The warrior, the savior, mother to be, refugees, victim.
Я зрозуміла, наскільки цінним для мене є мій дім, мої люди і моя земля. Все, що було до того дня, неначе перестало існувати. Тепер ми маємо лише цей час війни, який мусимо прийняти і де є за що боротись.
Південноафриканській публіці я хочу передати вітання, привітати вас, що ви живете під мирним небом, і подякувати за увагу. Дуже дякую.
I love Ukrainian people, and in my art want to hug them all, want to tell them how much I love them and grateful for their courage.
I invite you to have a bit more food, a bit more drink, and also do a proper job on the posters and really scan the QR codes and learn more about them. I would also like to say this is not the end. We are creating these dialogues as we go. We are leading with our hearts, and we don't have the answers for where this is going to go or how we can help, but it is a show of solidarity. It is starting something, and hopefully it starts a movement, and more people who connect to the human story that is happening in Ukraine can find a way or find an answer to do something. So thank you very much for coming through. Like I said earlier, the exhibition will be here every day except Sundays. We have to rest on Sundays. It will be downstairs at the entrance to our Tutu exhibition. Please invite other people to come and see and learn and feel and hopefully find a way to support. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. For me, can I just say, to invite you to also, if you do have a chance, to support the charity of our choice. When Olesa and I co-founded Sunseen Art, we wanted to support Ukrainian artists who create and express, their experience of war through art, but they don't have a chance to earn anything because they just work to communicate through art. So the posters that you will find, all of the proceeds are going to a charity run by an extraordinary woman in Ukraine called, her name is Olena Rozvadovska, and her charity is called Voices of Children. Olena, when the war started, not on 24th of February, but 8 years ago for us, in the east of Ukraine, with the annexation of Crimea, actually, and then in the east of Ukraine, she left her job and went to make sure that the kids in the Donetsk and Luhansk regions would not be as traumatized by the war that was touching their lives already 8 years ago. And now many of these kids who were living, on the edge of war already for 8 years, they've moved, they had to be relocated to western part of Ukraine, and she's taking care of them. So the proceeds from the poster sales will go to Voices of Children. So thank you very much for the opportunity to support them. Thank you.